Good afternoon and a very welcome to everyone for joining Hardman & Co today at the Investor Forum. My name is Richard Angus and I'm the Head of Business Development here at Hardman & Co. And we're very lucky to have Mike Hudson, who's the CEO, to talk to you. EDX Medical has an innovative approach to translating clinical insights into diagnostic solutions. And it was founded by Mike, along with Sir Christopher Evans, who I'm sure many of you will either know or have heard of. The company listed on Aquis in November 2022. Mike, welcome, and I'm going to pass straight over to you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so we're a company that's in the medical industry. We're integrated now well within that whole healthcare provider network, and we provide what we call digital diagnostics. So these are the diagnostic tools that doctors, health professionals need in order to diagnose, improve the treatment of patients, and they can do that cost effectively with our products. Introducing the background, why is there a need for this? It's also about timing. We've seen convergence of digital technologies over the last decade and a massive explosion of bioscience knowledge coming out from the pharmaceutical industry, from the research communities, and really the convergence of what's happened in bioscience and our understanding of disease and the ability of digital technologies to now analyze that and report it effectively in a timely fashion means that probably today is the moment in time when digital diagnostics really is going to have its day in the sun. Just to recap then, we're focused on the major disease areas, and major in terms of impact on human life, impact on financial budgets, the cost of care, and by getting earlier diagnosis, which I think we're all aware of, you buy more time to treat more effectively with better knowledge. And as a result of that, the providers of healthcare services, whether they be in the public or private sector, get to benefit from delivering better outcomes cost effectively. And clearly, we have the ambition of impacting the major disease areas. So that is cancer, heart disease, and infectious diseases. So these are the three biggest areas globally that are impacting human life and also the economics. And our strategy has been to both develop and supply the best-in-class products for our clients. So many people in the healthcare industry talk about patients and patient benefit and unmet patient need, but we started this journey by looking specifically at the needs of the healthcare providers. And what they needed was more information at the right time to be able to improve the management, whether that be waiting lists, whether that be better survival prospects. And so at the end of the day, the patient inevitably benefits from this. And treatment options can be drawn come from all directions, but our job has been to really give them the tools that provides the information. So we're a products company, but we're also a service company. So the thing that we should note that we're a very young company, and it strikes me listening to the other presenters today. Business was formed in the very first months of 2022, and we've pursued a strategy of acquisition, of organic growth, and of sort of staged fundraising during our development. And we did a reversal onto Aquis in November 2022, later that year, in order to give us some access to capital, as we were starting to consummate some very large partnerships, and we wanted to be able to bring our products and innovation through that route to market at scale. So we're a rapidly growing company. We're clearly positioned in global markets that are also amongst some of the fastest growing areas of industry that you can find. And we're defined as much by what we don't do as by what we do. Diagnostics covers a very large number of fields of use. We only focus on products that are clinically impactful. So provide doctors and health professionals and insurers with the information they need about an individual's state of health. And we only sell to healthcare professionals. We provide both the physical tests and the data. and the analytics, the interpretation, for them to be able to sort of use that data, interpret it, and deliver what we think of as really truly effective personalised medicine. And that drives the patient outcomes. So the patient is obviously the big winner at the end of all of this, but along the way, there has to be strong alignment between the payers and providers. And a lot of medicine is often slow to change. But in this area, I think none of us can have missed how important it's becoming to be able to enable our doctors here and in every other country in the world to have access to the information and the tools to enable them to do a better job. Simply hiring and training more doctors is not going to get us there quick enough. So this is definitely a timing relevant market opportunity. It's also one that for many of the products and technologies that we're using individually, they have been developed, they've been validated, and these are robust industrial strength solutions now. They just haven't been joined up and combined and then really sat down with the user in mind for deployment. So it does mean that we operate our own laboratories, and we're based in Oxford and in Cambridge. Our head office is in Cambridge. And we, as you would expect, at the home of DNA, we run full genomic sequencing ourselves. And many of the tests that we would have been exposed to or heard of during COVID are run routinely in our laboratories. And that allows us to provide products for very different purposes and also at very different price points. And that's important not to ignore the cost of the value of that data. The other thing that I mentioned earlier is that we have really been strongly focused on forming partnerships with companies who we think have a leadership position. So we are a small company. We're 3 years old. And we've been able to form some exceptional partnerships with large companies, often which are very mutually beneficial. And that has brought us great strength. It's also given us the capacity to move faster than we might have otherwise thought we'd be capable of doing. And a big driver for that is both access to technologies, which some of these organizations have at scale and therefore cost advantages, but also those that have been working for many years have been able to accumulate the sort of critical clinical data that is so important in being able to use the science and technology that's there at our disposal. So I talk about a partnership that we formed at this time last year with Thermo Fisher, global company, which is providing us with not only access to technology, but great ability to step back in time and look at what was relevant a number of years ago when patients were first being enrolled in trials and studies, and understand how the data might have looked then and compare that with where we are today. So that saves a lot of repeat work. FedEx, I think we all know, but FedEx also run a healthcare specialist division. And when we need to bring samples from the furthest outposts in parts of Europe and get samples back to the airport at night and into our laboratories or partners' laboratories the following day, FedEx have even been flexible enough to route their vans and change their pickup orders on that scale. So there is a massive emotional and operational commitment from these partners to do a great job for us. And that's meant that as well as developing our own products, and I mentioned we're in partnership with both Cambridge and Oxford universities where we have physical presence and where we've acquired businesses or licensed patents, we've been able to partner with companies that are already players in the market where we consider that they've established a gold standard product. And not only that, but they've got literally millions of patient data already. And so compared to what we could generate, or even the whole of the UK with government backing can generate in terms of genomic sequencing and things, which are in the hundreds of thousands of samples. Our partnership with Caris Life Sciences in America, for example, which is the market leader in tumor sequencing and profiling. They already have 4 million patients' data over the last 7 or 8 years. So that's really impossible to catch up from a standing start. So we know when to partner with companies that bring us something exclusive. And from our business point of view and our clients, they can rely on us to provide them with access and also the backup logistics to be able to use these tools effectively. Now, we talked about the laboratory and samples having to get back to our laboratory and doing that really well. But anybody who looks in the healthcare sector will realize that there's a lot of other pressures and changes underway. And part of that is moving towards point of care testing, simplification, smaller, faster, quicker, cheaper. And what that means at the end of the day is if we can do it in our laboratory, we should be the first people to try and take those laboratory assays and reduce them to simpler products that can then be scaled globally, taken through more rigorous regulatory procedures, and then brought to market globally. So our business model really evolves in 2 stages. The first is refining and developing laboratory assays with our help from Thermo Fisher and others, and getting those running in our own laboratories particularly well. The second stage is once we've got a grip on that, is to move ourselves into a product development space, take those products, get them through the regulatory procedures and launch them globally to other laboratories around the world. And these are examples of those products which are following on from our laboratory work. So it's a 2-stage business model. Our laboratory both generates service income during its formative stages and also is the background work that allows us to develop products. So why would this business, which might sound technically very interesting and might be at the right time, who would you be joining and what's the makeup of the business? So EDX Medical was founded by Sir Chris Evans. Chris and I have known each other since 1976. We're coming up to 49 years of relationships. We've worked together for the last 24 years on something like a dozen private and some public startup biotech companies. And this business is the most recent one for us, and we're in a big hurry. So we've been backed by a great board, colleagues, Trevor Jones, Jason Holt, our chairman, and most recently Eric Vick to join us as commercial officer as we're now starting revenues. And we've been backed by some very well-known private investors and family offices, predominantly UK, but not entirely. But these guys have backed us from the beginning since our reversal onto Aquis, and then subsequently earlier this year when we raised nearly 6 million. So we've raised around 10 million pounds so far since our formation. And have built a business that's now got a substantial portfolio of products, exclusive access, our own products in development, and a robust market access plan that is now being led by Eric with myself to be able to sort of bring those products into the market across the healthcare channels. So we talked a little bit about being at the right time. We're definitely one of the very, very fast movers in this growing market. That is all about being at the right time. It's also about enabling doctors and healthcare providers to get access to the right treatments at the right time, giving patients their individual results they need. And all of this is a very positive environment to be working in. We have been successfully raising finances on Aquis since listing, and that's always been at a premium. And we raised a small amount recently as well, following that same process. We've got a very experienced board and leadership team with great backers. And I think the quality of the business is really exemplified by those international partnerships that we've already been able to form with the likes of Thermo Fisher, FedEx, that ensure that our operational delivery, which is the stage we're now entering into, also meets very, very high expectations. So I'd like to sort of draw a close at that and take questions. Thanks.
What would you say is the most distinctive feature about EDX that investors would like to understand? So I'm not quite sure whether that's suggesting that people really haven't quite got the story yet, or is there a 30-second elevator pitch that you would give people to get them intrigued in order to want to find out more?
I think, we're a healthcare company, not a biotech company classically. So biotech companies are often very binary. They have that one breakthrough product that's going to revolutionize the world, we all hope. Our business has got a really strong portfolio strategy, and it's very much customer focused rather than patient focused in the first instant. So this makes us unusual. It's a very commercial organization, therefore. And I think often if people think of Sir Chris and myself with background in the bioscience, biotechnology sector, they'd assume that we've got one blockbuster molecule. This is a portfolio play, and that's very unusual in this industry. So I think that makes our business quite different from most companies that you'll look at if you're looking at biotech investing, certainly.
Okay, so question from Peter, which rather moves on to that, because you're moving very fast. So you obviously have a big ambition, and what limitations do you face? And maybe you'd like to answer that question, and then based on what you say, there's another question that might follow up on that and be relevant, but you may well cover that in the answer to this one. So let's go.
There might be a clue in the question then. Thanks, Richard. I guess this is a very people-based business, like a lot of business, and I know it's easy to say that, but firstly, people that understand and have the time to understand disease and can get into that are very special people. They're sometimes doctors, they're sometimes scientists, and people who understand the ethics and the issues around sharing that information with people securely, patients, doctors, also have to have a very broad understanding of what's going on. So I would say that building the team of people is always going to be the piece that we have to be very careful about. There's a wide open field of technologies, and we can always assess good and bad technologies and make choices. So that isn't a limitation. But the biggest challenge, I think, for businesses like us is that at the end of the day, I talked about the very large hospital groups, the insurance companies that are going to trust us to find the right products for them at the right price and get them access to them effectively. They've got to trust us. And so people are very important in this organization, I would say. Yeah.
So I think the question was probably moving on to liquidity and cash resources. Does that limit your growth, or the way that you have these partnerships with these massive companies, and you talked about Thermo Fisher, etc.? How does it work that basically you can grow very rapidly, but they may have the financial resources to assist you rather than you having to raise the money yourself? Or does it not work like that?
That's a really interesting way. And at the moment, we are financially completely independent from our partnerships, and we work on an arm's length basis through their choice and ours. And I think what we've found, which has been really reassuring, is that those relationships have broadened since we originally conceived them. So the relationship with Thermo Fisher is a good one because originally we wanted to effectively go back in time and get access to some of their data that was off some of their old machines and convert that into the modern era. And they were uniquely positioned to do that and help us one very specific request. But what they realized very quickly was that around the world, there are lots of people inventing ideas in universities, in hospitals, and they've often supplied the equipment or the reagents to them. But they can't manage all of those relationships either. So we end up having to be able to bring those things all together and make it simpler for them to manage, and also simpler for us. So they have quarterly meetings with us, and they can deal with multiple projects, and we can translate those projects in one laboratory rather than them having to cover lots of places around the world. So it's very mutually beneficial. From a financing point of view, we made a plan which set out that we wanted to build a portfolio. We would be taking multiple products through that stage of validating them in our laboratory, turning them into things that can go in boxes and be sold everywhere and pay for the regulatory approval process. And I guess that what we see now is that there is such a strong demand from inventors pushing up and consumers or hospital groups pulling for assets and wanting access to those tests, that we're certainly overblessed with opportunities at the moment, because that pipeline has really opened up in front of our eyes, bigger than we might have hoped. That does give us the opportunity to scale even beyond our initial ambitions, which were pretty significant. So this is a company that I think now there is certainly corporate venture interest in us, and we're a public company, so we shouldn't say more than that. But those discussions have now recently started taking place, where previously we've kept the trading relationships or the development relationships quite separate from any equity ownership in the business.
This is from David, so it's a follow-on question. It sounds like you already have enough connections and enough shareholders who know you well to fund your growth. Will you be looking for new shareholders?
Well, we recently welcomed one new shareholder, actually from the Gulf, in just a few weeks ago. So that was our second offshore non-British shareholder on there. So that was really nice to see. I think there's lots of reasons why we would be interested in diversifying the stakeholders in the business. Typically where they can bring some additional market access or interest, and we do receive those approaches quite regularly now. So, certainly at the right time and place, that's something that we'll be most interested in being able to entertain.
So, by implication, was your new shareholder the latest one? Was someone who approached you, or did you happen to know them already, or how did you connect?
No. They saw us and wanted a piece of the business, and we are on Aquis. There is some liquidity; people can buy shares, obviously, and they can sell them. That's the market. So, but if somebody wants to buy a proper stake in the company the board has the opportunity through Aquis to be able to issue new shares at the appropriate time, and we've done that, previously when somebody brings some value to us as well as the cash, and we've got a particular purpose in mind.
Mike, that's terrific. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time. That's a fascinating presentation. So anyway, once again, thank you very much for everybody. I hope you've all learned something from the forum, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you and goodbye.